Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit here, back again with Yowamushi Pedal. We're on episode 17. We are still in the training camp phase, and in the last couple of episodes, there's been quite a sort of a divide. I guess what you could really call it is sort of like a free-for-all. Everyone's trying their best to, finish laps quicker, finish the most laps, because depending on how well they do, the chances of them going to the inter-high, increases dramatically. So yeah, but aside from like being a free-for-all, it seems that there's sort of like clear teams that are helping obviously each other out. Makes sense because cycling isn't a solo sport. So yeah, you've got the second years and the first years, aside from Sugimoto really, who are sort of going against each other. And yeah, so with Teshima and Oyagi sort of being the second years, they have the problem is with them two is that I feel like they're not flexible enough, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they rely on each other too much to the point where if one fails, then they both fail. So, it's almost, it's an advantage and it's also a disadvantage at the same time, you know what I mean? All it takes is for one to screw up for them both to, So yeah, I mean, brains in the brawn kind of thing they've got going on. As good as they were doing up to a certain point, I feel like Teshima kind of, stepped off the gas a little bit, especially with the massive oversight where he was like, obviously we had Onoda take him on up the climb, right, to try and get ahead of Teshima, and Teshima had it in his head that he can only go for 40 seconds. I mean, massive oversight. I mean, because you got to think, right, that since he had this. It hasn't actually been that long, I do believe, since he got that information, because I believe it was when they first joined up. Really, it was after the welcoming race, right, where you had Onoda and Makishima sort of training and whatnot. So I don't think it's been a long time since that, but that's where he got the information that Onoda can only go for like 40 seconds and at full pelt, and that's it. But I mean, there's a lot of different factors. Like there has been times since then. He's been doing this over the past couple of days, you know what I mean? So stamina build up and stuff like that. And also the fact on some days, sometimes you just have that little bit more energy to go on, you know what I mean? So the fact is that he relies so heavily on metrics and things and facts and statistics and stuff that it's fucked him over. That happens way too many times. Well, it doesn't happen way too many times, but there are a lot of cases like in anime where you have the character that is so focused on all of that stuff that it ends up fucking them over. So it's not surprising that it did happen that way. So yeah, Onoda managed to get by them, and now it's a case of what happens next. So I don't think there's anything else to really talk about. We're just going to get in episode 17 and see what we get. So without further ado, let's go. Oh, I didn't need to do that. That was pointless. People only wear the fucking hair turban things when they have long hair, so they can dry out over time. Oh, can't believe Onoda thinks that's cool. Anyway, yeah. So episode 17. Jesus Christ, I haven't fucking finished yet. Next episode though, luckily it's in the same. I'm watching next episode in the same setting, so. Luckily, I don't have to wait like another week to watch how this ends up. But yeah, so yeah, they all passed Teshima. Teshima just held up and got off his bike, just completely, basically gave up until Oyagi came back around. I really like Oyagi, by the way. You know what I mean? Might just be his sort of, I don't know, maybe there's like something about him where his silence the fact is that he is incredibly silent. He doesn't exactly say a lot. I think adds to his just adds to me liking him overall. Out of Teshima and Oyagi, I'm sure in the next coming episodes, I will bring Teshima on board as you know what I mean? Yeah, I like Teshima now. Because at the end of the day, he is a part of our school, right? So, You know what I mean? Like, he is part of our club. It's just that it becomes a battle within when you're all fighting to get into a tournament, right? So, you know, he is sort of like the quote-unquote villain right now, you know what I mean? Because he talks up a big game and everything, you know what I mean? And there definitely is something about somebody who is so sure of themselves and thinks they have all the answers, and then watching them be done in, you know what I mean? Watching them be overcome by other means, you know? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, he was, you know, too full of himself in a way. So yeah, but I think that's probably why I like Oyagi, because even though that is the case, you know, he sticks with him, you know. But then it's not surprising, because that is their way of, that's how they've sort of found themselves a winning formula in a way, is by having each other, you know. So I mean, it would be very dickish if Oyagi went, yeah, you let them go, fuck you, and just kept on pedaling, you know. But yeah, I was sure, I was sure the first years didn't have lights on. For some reason that was in my head, you know. Because I'm positive, wasn't last episode or the episode before? I think it was last episode. I think it was episode 16. Teshima had talked about. Bear with me, because it has been a week, so I can't, and I didn't write it down. There was some quote about Teshima basically saying that, like, oh, if you don't have any lights going ahead, then, or it might have been the whole disadvantage thing, because they mentioned it in this episode as well. Like, when you're out in front, having like, you know, when you're out in front in darkness, it's a disadvantage no matter what, because there's only so much, I guess, you can light up in front of you. So yeah, maybe I just heard it wrong last episode, and from then on, like, I kind of figured they didn't have lights, but yeah, I guess they did. I mean, it kind of just went hand in hand with the idea that I didn't think they were riding in full darkness, and, you know, the idea that I figured the course would have been lit up relatively well. So I don't know, but but yeah. So I like that when Onoda did pass Teshima, and then Imaizumi and Naruko came through as well, that Onoda was about to fucking tip over. They kept him up, basically dragging him along, essentially, you know. That was great. It's just, again, like, another showing you again, like, the sort of the, you know, team aspect, how you keep your team in check as well as yourself, you know. So yeah, that's cool. So yeah, it seems that Oyagi and Teshima have this sort of mentorship with Todokoro. Todokoro, basically, he takes it like sort of, he almost like takes responsibility for their training in a way. I mean, that's what he basically said. But yeah, I liked like one of the things he did say was think too hard and they'll pass you. When he was referring to sort of willpower in the end, it's interesting that he says that, especially what had happened just beforehand, where Teshima was like, think too hard and they'll pass you. Like, in a way, Teshima, because that's his main thing, is thinking, that he thought that he had everything figured out, that Onoda would only be able to keep up that pace for 40 seconds. And yeah, and Onoda could just go beyond that, you know what I mean? Thinking too hard, as opposed to just, you know, getting in the zone. I've said this before, I think I mentioned, I think I had like a whole episode almost, where I was, in like one of the Haikyuu episodes, where I was talking about when you're playing sport and there's some kind of, there's like a zone where you go into, where all of a sudden everything becomes instinctual, and like you're kind of working through, you're going through the motions sort of subconsciously, so all of a sudden, like, you're not thinking about anything, and you just do. And generally when you're in that sort of zone, you don't need to think about things. You're doing things based off of instinct, and it almost works, like, it works to your advantage, like, incredibly, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the time when and this doesn't even have to be related to sports at all, but it works better in sports, like, because of just exactly what it is that you're doing. But generally when you tend to overthink things, that's when you start fucking up. You know what I mean? Because you're desperately trying to do the best that you possibly can, but by doing that, you're spending more time focusing on I have to do the best rather than actually doing the best. So I think when it comes to Teshima as a sort of, a part of this team, his strengths have to come from, moments in the races, or even just beforehand, where you set up a strategy and then just follow it. Because I don't think having it, like, it's going to be running a risk of doing it during a race, like in the middle of one. Because I feel like your focus just needs to be elsewhere. So yeah, it's a definite, like, sort of disadvantage on Teshima's part. Just thinking too hard about everything and making sure everything's down to the best possible outcome, when there are factors at play where you can't just go down on statistics on anything. I mean, I'm one where when I'm watching sports and, like, and I get why they do it, but you have the the sports panels and stuff like that, like pre, halfway, and like after games, and all the way through the game, commentators, and they're giving stats about the stuff that people have done, like that players have been doing, like, during games and whatever, and therefore that dictates how things are going to play out. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? Statistics can give you kind of a rough idea, but it doesn't tell you the future. You know what I mean? It doesn't say what's going to happen. You know what I mean? It just gives you an outline of what is basically, on average, what has happened, either throughout a game, across the course of a whole season. You don't know, right? So, relying too much on what's going on, what has happened before with somebody in the past, it's like, you can't hold everyone to that sort of degree. It's like, oh yeah, you can only go 40 seconds. What dictates that? You could go 40 seconds in that one, like, time where you actually measured it out. You know what I mean? But like I said, other factors. So yeah, it's just a massive disadvantage. Thinking too hard about that kind of stuff. Yeah, so when Onoda did actually end up fall behind, here's one of the things, well, like I did mention it during the reaction, it would have been so great to see Onoda be like, there's nothing I can do. I gave everything I had to get in front of, well, clearly he didn't give everything he had. He still got more, judging by what went on in the rest of the episode. But, like, I thought it would have been great to, like, have him be like, there's nothing else I can do. I'll play back what they did on us and use it against them, and block them from getting past, because if you could slow down them, then that basically gives Imaizumi and Naruko just like a free pass, essentially, you know what I mean? Which, again, I feel like Onoda didn't, like, it's not like something that Onoda needed to do to prove that he was like a team player, because he'd already done that by passing Teshima and allowing them to get past him as well. You know what I mean? But Naruko basically saying, once Onoda fell behind, and Naruko was saying, like, oh, we've got, like, he's thinking about going back and getting him and helping him and stuff, and it's, it's admirable, and I get the reason why he wanted to do it. But on the other side, I felt like it's also like a, I called it before it happened. Like, this is something that Onoda needs to get out of, like, he needs to get out of himself. Fucking beeping the car, fucking outside. Almost lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's something that Onoda had to get out of himself. And I figured that was what would happen anyway, because literally leading up to that, you had the whole Tarakoro thing about willpower at the end. And I'm like, out of every character, I mean, the second years have gotten some, like, over the course of the last few episodes and whatnot, like, they've gotten some story and given you a reason as to why they have the willpower to go ahead and do it. But, like, Onoda, being our main character, he's gotten that willpower. He's got the reasons to go above and beyond. So yeah, I never doubted him for a second. And yeah, I basically said everything Imaizumi was had in his head before it even happened. It's like the reason why he is behind is because he gave almost everything to get beyond Teshima and then, you know, basically give you the advantage going forward so that you guys would take a lead. He almost gave everything to do that. So to go back and basically remove, you're basically undoing everything that he did, which would be even worse, you know what I mean? And then Imaizumi, you know, basically picked up on that fact as, like, you know, the things that I've been saying over the course of the past episodes, that Onoda is better when he has something in sight, you know what I mean? He's not good in front where there's nothing ahead of him. When he sees something ahead of himself, that's what he wants. He wants to catch up. All of a sudden it becomes a thing of, he doesn't think about it. That, again, like, that all comes back to thinking too hard about things. When he sees somebody ahead of him, all of a sudden every sort of negative thought going on in his head about, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I make up the time? All of it goes out the window, and all it becomes is, it doesn't even become a race anymore, or like trying to reach a goal. The only thing that really enters his mind is, I want to catch up to that person, and then once he's there, it's keep up with that person. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of role he plays, especially in the tournaments and like the longer races and stuff, when like Sohoku are working as a team, because then it's like, well, he's not going to be the character that, you know, like maybe earlier on in a race, maybe we've got like still a long way to go, that Onoda wouldn't be the kind of person to catch up to somebody like who's ever in front and then go ahead of them, you know what I mean? Like, and make like get a lead ahead. I guess that's pretty much, you know, obvious now that I'm like talking about it, because he is a climber at the end of the day. Like that seems to be like his specialty. I feel like he has like, you know, because he is like our protagonist, and he has that like sort of willpower that he could do some other stuff as well. But I feel like, you know, working to that sort of advantage, like he wouldn't be he's not the character out of the group that's going to do that, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's a team sport, so, you know, it's going to be up to somebody else to go ahead and take that lead, Todokoro or Naruko, someone, you know. So yeah, I like, yeah. So like, you know, basically summarizing all that up. I like the fact that it was, you know, Imaizumi is the one that had faith in Onoda being able to catch up on his own. I think that all stems. Well, it does. I mean, because they showed that that little scene where it was Onoda and Imaizumi trying to race to the peak. You know what I mean? Like, Imaizumi was there. He recognized. You know what I mean? So I like that sort of continuity there. That was good. But the third years. Like, there was a scene where they clearly saw the 5 lights coming up and around, right? Like, onto the straight. And then, like, the next scene over, Imaizumi was like, "Oh, there's a wide left coming up here," and I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm confused, because I thought that it looked like they were already like turning onto the straight, and then the next scene it was like they weren't on a straight and they were getting ready to turn in. I guess there's like that whole thing of like, you know, trying to play in the anime time and things, and how, like, you know, most of this episode took place over the course of like 300 meters or something, you know what I mean? And like, I mean, you know, take the fucking, you know, the world record for, you know, sprinting over 100 meters, which is like what, 8 seconds or something like that. So basically just triple that, you know what I mean? Obviously it would extend a bit, but still, like, you're talking about like what, like 25 seconds, 26 seconds? That's how long it would take to get over 300 meters, and that's running on a bike, cycling, a racing bike at that. You would be done in like 10 seconds. So I feel like that took like, so you're talking about like maybe like 15 minutes. Maybe it might have been the whole episode, I don't know, but of what could have taken place over 15 seconds in real time, in anime time, took a whole episode. That's nuts. It's crazy, you know what I mean? But that's anime for you. That's what happens. So yeah. And yeah, here's another thing as well. Here's the last thing I've got on this episode is, I mentioned during the reaction, remember, like, the first years are doing this against second years, the second years who have their bikes are complete. You know what I mean? Like, the first years have bikes that have been altered with, and they're keeping up. You know what I mean? And they're outdoing. You know what I mean? So, if the second years were to win, surely there's got to be like something like where it's clear. It's like, well, yeah, you beat them, and just I mean, give Naruko, Imaizumi, and Onoda, like, you know, bikes that haven't been altered with, and they would have won, right? Surely. But, you know, 'tis what it is, I guess. We'll just have to wait and see if that comes into play in the next episode, because I'm sure I'd be surprised if they completely brush it aside. You know? Because Naruko, like, if he had his the underbar things, you know what I mean? Like, he's the best one out there for you know, sprinting. So, you know, like, that's a big factor that needs to be taken into account. It's like the second year has only managed to beat them on those laps, like on those 3 laps or whatever, because of altered bikes and stuff, you know. So, you know, I'm wondering I'm hoping it does get brought up, because if it is just swept aside, like it didn't even matter in that whole thing, then I'll be a bit disappointed. But we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's all I've got for this episode. So thank you everyone for watching. In the description below, I've linked certain things. One of them is the Discord. If you want any information regarding my content, you can get yourself over there and talk to the community and me as well, and Patreon as well. So I do have a Patreon. If you do want to support me, that'd be very much appreciated. There's a bunch of different tiers and rewards depending on how much you want to support me with. So if you know, if you do want to support me, that'd be very much appreciated. There's a early access tier, $5 a month, gives you access to shows a week early. And you get 4 episodes of Hunter x Hunter every week as well. So if you're clamoring for more reactions from me from that's where you want to go. $10 a month, that is the full length. That gives you access to my full length library. Everything I react to gets a full length. Exclusive tier, $15. That gives you access to a bonus show I'm currently reacting to, which is 7 Deadly Sins. So if you want to see my reactions to that's where you want to go. Elite tier, that is the $50. Every time you pay $50, you get a choice of a show that you want me to react to, and I will react to it. It will go at the bottom of the list, but I know it's 7 shows. Might take a while to get round to it, but I will do eventually. But if you don't want to wait that long and you want your show to be reacted to next, and you want to get God tier, which is $100. But that is all. So thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.